Welcome back to the Chicagolandians, a casual Chicago sports podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Cunningham, joined by my co-host, Conor Cunningham.
We're two brothers from the Chicagoland area talking about the latest and greatest in Chicago sports news.
Welcome back to another episode of the Chicagolandians. I'm your host, Patrick Cunningham, joined by my co-host, Conor Cunningham.
Hello, hello.
And then on today's special episode, we're once again reunited with Mike Cunningham and John Cunningham. You guys want to say hi?
Hey, yo.
What's up, guys?
Reunited, and it feels so good.
Prominent Chicago Bears fans, passionate fans of football, experienced sports lovers just in general. We're happy to have them both on the podcast again. Yep. In today's episode, we are going to be giving our first spit takes, initial reactions to the Bears NFL draft. This, as of recording right now, should be Sunday, April 28th. And the Bears draft concluded yesterday on Saturday. We had 5 picks to go over, some thoughts, some likes, some dislikes, and just general outlooks on how we think the season's going to be with the addition of these new players. So just to get started, Mike, I want to turn it over to you first. Just your initial reactions to the draft, some of your thoughts, like quick reactions. How about that first day? Because I felt like I had such visceral reactions to that first day of excitement. What were your thoughts on that first day?
I mean, yeah, first day went absolutely picture perfect. You know, going through mocks over the past several months, the one that I always seem to come back to that I enjoyed the most was the Caleb Romadunze mock. And for that to play out the way it did, the picks didn't quite go as we expected, but it still ended up working out in our favor. And to get Rome at the 9, and obviously Caleb at the 1, was more than he could hope for.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I think the Chargers taking Joe Alt, I feel like that was unexpected. And then the Titans taking J.C. Latham. I feel like those are the two picks.
Yeah, that was the one you didn't know what was going to happen there.
Well, I would say the Falcons, when those crafty birds from down south.
But the Falcons have gone offense for the past 4 drafts. I feel like they don't need. I was going to be surprised if they drafted another receiver after they've already got London and Pitts.
But then I thought for sure they're going to take a defensive player, and then they take the most offensive player you can draft of the quarterback.
There's no one more offensive than a quarterback.
Yeah. John, do you have any quick thoughts of those first 2 picks?
I mean, general thoughts. I feel like I watched a little bit of the draft last year. This is the first time I had ever specifically made time to sit down. I watched 2 days of this draft. I've never had draft fever like that. I mean, I could do a whole thing on just the kind of circumstance and circusness of the draft, like the huge stadium they put together, having Eminem come out, the weird interaction between Roger Goodell and Eminem.
Oh yeah, that was great.
Roger Goodell was letting Eminem kind of slag him, and then how every time Roger Goodell came out, the crowd booed him, and how he had to eventually be like, "Come on, guys." It's so pathetic.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he was like, "Oh, come on."
I mean, he knows he's such a punching bag, but he gets paid enough that he doesn't care.
All I was thinking was, since the season ended, since midway through the season, we'd been talking about this. Are we going to take Caleb Williams? And the Bears have just, I feel like, screwed up draft after draft after draft. Ryan Pace, as our last GM, kind of felt like he was always smarter than everybody else and was doing something that nobody else was thinking. But that ended up never being the case. His picks never, I mean, I guess, Fields didn't work out. Mitch didn't work out. So just to hear Roger Goodell say Caleb Williams' name, I was like, I cannot believe that this is actually happening, that we drafted the person everybody said we were supposed to draft. And of course, I looked back at the last number 1 draft pick we had, which was in 1947, Bob Fenimore, Big Bob.
I mean, we all know about Bob Fenimore. Legend.
A classic Chicago legend.
He was injury prone, I think ended up being an insurance salesman after his career. And then in 1941 drafted Tom Harmon. So what is that? Almost 80 years since we've had a number 1 draft pick. So I was beyond excited to see that it went correctly. And then having Big Romeo out there, Big Romeo, get picked up was just insane. I was cheering. I went over to talk to my wife multiple times, which is like to tell her how excited I was that these things were happening on a draft. And she's like, "Oh, okay, honey, pat on your forehead." Leave me alone.
It's like showing your parents a video game that you're working on.
Or like taking a picture of the high score of your Crash Bandicoot game and showing it to your parents.
Like, this Pokemon's really rare. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not going to lie. Literally, until I heard the first syllable of Caleb Williams' name, I had immense panic going through my chest that
I agree.
we were going to do something stupid, that we were going to trade, we were going to go to Jaden Daniels.
Or like Bo Nix
JJ.
or Drake May. Like, you know, that's what Pace would have done. He would have been like, Bo Nix is actually the right guy for this draft.
Do not follow the 99%. I agree.
Connor and I both had a shout reaction. For one, when Michael Penix was drafted, we didn't even process
No, we
that it
didn't
was
even
Michael
process it was
Penix.
Penix.
We just heard M and we were like, yes. And then we were like, wait, Michael Penix? And then when Rome was drafted, as soon as we heard R, we both got up and yelled, and it was 3 a.m. Swedish time. So exciting! Oh my God, so exciting.
Now I heard a potential take as to why they drafted Penix, which this is probably giving the Falcons way too much credit. That there are rumors that they're going to get in trouble for tampering with Kirk Cousins. So they're going to lose their first-round draft pick next year. So they wouldn't be able to draft a quarterback for another 2 years. So they had a guy they liked, so they went for it. But still the Falcons.
Tampering, like they were courting him while he was still on the Vikings?
I think so.
Or the Eagles got in trouble for that too. Yeah.
Before the
which is why the Chase Claypool pick turned into a first-round pick instead of a second-round pick, because the Eagles had lost their first-rounder.
Or no, so that was the Dolphins losing their pick. I think the Dolphins I think it's because of something with Brian Flores. But the Eagles for Saquon and the Falcons for Kirk Cousins, even though no one was complaining about the Bears signing DeAndre Swift 30 seconds into free agency, but I don't know.
I mean, that happens every year. I don't get how
I don't
they
understand
pick
what it was.
Isn't there a
when to
period?
enforce that.
Isn't there some period, like legal tampering period?
Well, that's the day before, which is we signed DeAndre Swift 30 seconds into the legal tampering period.
It's a short conversation, short phone call.
Wait, can I give
Connor, give your quick thoughts.
Yeah, so I think this draft, obviously, first 2 picks, we feel like were home runs. I feel like as we got closer to the draft, I feel like it got harder and harder to think about Rome actually coming to the Bears, because especially when nobody traded up for McCarthy in the first 8. I thought that was interesting, because I feel like it all kind of rode on 4 quarterbacks going within the top 8, which is why Penix going in front, I feel like made it all work out. That was stressful, I feel like, to have happen, but I feel like this is the first draft in a while where I feel like every draft that we've had for the last 5 years, mock drafts ends up being we could see 4 or 5 quarterbacks go in the first round, and I feel like they all bounce out of the first round. This is the first time that I feel like 6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks. That's insanity.
Exceeded expectations, yeah.
Yeah. So I think, this draft was very interesting with that. A lot of teams just really doubting the next year's draft class. But just, walking away with Rome is the most important thing. Obviously Caleb, but getting a guy like Rome, I feel super excited about. And it was funny. I don't know if you saw polls after the draft on Thursday. Somebody was like, "What'd you think of that Atlanta? Or what'd you think of that Atlanta pick?"
He just smiled.
He laughed and said,
"He's holding in the laugh."
It was funny. Yeah.
God, how slick did he look? That haircut, Flus haircut,
and that Flus beard.
Oh, sorry, were you not talking about Flus?
We were talking about Poles.
Sorry, I mean he always looks great.
Poles had a fresh cut too. He got lined up, but Flus was oof.
I was like, who's that guy with the fade next to Ryan Poles? Oh my God, that's Eberflus.
Yeah, the fact that the first 12, was it the first 12 picks were all offense, or was it more than that?
I think the first 14.
First 14 picks all offense? That's wild.
Insane.
Colts, Latu Latu was the first
Latu,
pick. He was the 15th.
Which that was a bit surprising to see him going above Turner, but...
Yeah, Vikings made out well, right, with Turner and JJ.
Traded up twice, yeah.
Yeah, so I think just getting into the specifics, we're going to go through each of the 5 players that we selected. First up on the list, easiest pick that we had to make, the no-brainer, we have quarterback Caleb Williams from USC. And yeah, John, I feel like what you said about it being surreal to actually hear his name, I felt like for me, even now that we have him, having a player that literally the entire NFL is curious about, and just seeing so much coverage of the Bears, and just seeing like every news story or video is the Bears. It's like so unique and strange to see.
Usually it's something bad happening. If we're getting that much coverage, it's like
analyzing
the
the
defensive
trade up to the
coordinator quit under strange circumstances.
Or trading up to number 2 to draft a quarterback with 13 starts. You know?
Yeah. I'll open it up real quick, but soon. But I just wanted to highlight the things that stood out to me with Caleb Williams. When he heard his name and he stood up and then started walking to the stage, I felt like you could just tell right away how passionate he was, or like ready to get going. He, when they walk to the mirror and they give you the hat, everyone looks in the mirror and like sees how they look before they walk out. And like Caleb just grabbed the hat and just kept going, like didn't even stop to look, gets out, literally screams with passion.
Yeah, I like that scream.
Oh man, it was so exciting, and you feel like this guy really is coming in and attacking just from the get-go. So excited and just ready to get things going, and so thankful to just actually see it happening.
And he just immediately seemed like a leader. I feel like I've been worried about all of the drama surrounding him and, about his ego and how he presents himself, but he just seemed like he was the guy, knew he was the guy, and was in charge. I don't know if you guys heard rumors about that he wanted Odunze. Well, that they've all been communicating with each other and working out with each other, and that there was something that maybe he had also really said, we got to get Rome. And then when they got him in the draft and Caleb is like, we got our guy. When you draft a guy of this stature, he is an invested part of your team, right? He is not just the quarterback who's going to do what you say. He has equal say in the room. And it's cool to see that sort of starting already.
I agree. That's pretty sweet. I assume we all saw all the same stuff, but they like flew in on the same plane together from LA. Yeah, him and Rome.
And just to hear that he's been talking to, I think, Keenan Allen or DJ Moore. Yeah. There's been some constant communication between all 4 of those players, which just seemed, and the Bears have been communicating with him about their offense in whatever amount of time he had. It's just so cool to hear someone be invested in the Bears, the team that is always just like the punchline nobody cares about. And he is ready to go and own this team, which is awesome. In my lifetime, I have not felt a player of his stature have that kind of investment in the Chicago Bears, which is really cool.
Well, because I wouldn't say, obviously we're never a destination for any player ever, except like Khalil Mack, that like a huge free agent that we signed. So we just never, but even that was a trade. Yeah. Like we never get this stature of player coming in. So yeah, it's very, very cool to see, super exciting. But so now obviously it's coming in and it's like, well, the pressure that he faced in college or at USC, is he going to be able to adjust to the pressure of the NFL and to Chicago and whatnot? But and maybe we've touched, or maybe Connor and Pat, you guys touch on this in other episodes, but it's because he's the first NIL superstar, he's already been getting paid. Totally. He's already made millions of dollars. So that's not going to be a big change in his life. All of his attention, all these endorsements, millions of dollars. He still goes in and gets his work done, still performs, even with all that going on in the background.
No, yeah, just the thing about him being so excited, him texting Tory Taylor already, or seemingly having a connection with everybody is really cool. I think just the idea that I don't know, when Trubisky got drafted or Fields got drafted, I think Vegas, he's the current rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year candidate, which is super exciting. I don't know, it's just there's a lot of energy here. And something I'll say is I know I felt a ton of energy when we drafted Fields initially. The hope that we had there was incredible. And, obviously there's no, you can't just compare him to that. But I feel just so much hope right now as a Bears fan, which is great. I think it was so funny. I saw Stroud going on still talking about the thing of I know. Man, why didn't they do this for Fields? Yeah, the Field stuff where it's just like
bro,
relax.
get over
or
it.
the I know
Jesus.
I kept seeing that the Tyson Bagent troll guy being like take Harrison at 1, take Odunze at 9.
So we've got 5 receivers on the field every
trade into the second round, get Troy Franklin, just get all receivers.
Yeah. No, overall happy with Caleb Williams. Great pick.
To what Mike was talking about his preparedness, right? Like, he just seems ready for this already. Like, I remember Justin Fields' first press conference being so weird. And Justin Fields, it was just always so weird talking to the press, never felt comfortable. And listening to Caleb Williams talk, like, oh, this guy is ready to go.
He was like built in the lab for this. I mean, since the time he was 10, his dad had a nutritionist, had a trainer, had, I'm sure, like 5 quarterbacks coaches, like always doing
the chosen
super
one,
intense regimen to like get him to that number 1 pick. And they think of like how many thousands of kids do that and it doesn't work out, but worked out for him. And it's like was just like bred for this.
Just in general, happy to see it going. And I think it's the start of many, 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 many Super Bowls.
Many, 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 10 to 12 Super Bowls.
I mean, he said he's chasing 8 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to the next pick, we had at number 9, we have wide receiver Rome Odunze from Washington. This is a player that polls had said 50-50 chance that the mocks would make it fall his way to get Odunze, but he fell to us. And I think it's just very reassuring and exciting to see polls and the Bears in general. All of our picks until Austin Booker at the end, and I guess our last 2 picks, go 100% in on our offense and just trying to surround Caleb with as much as he needs to succeed by drafting a stud wide receiver. It's just so exciting to see. You know, for specifics on Odunze, he is a deep threat receiver, jump ball receiver that is willing to go up and get the 50-50 ball and is just an unbelievable athlete. A lot of people said he would be the best receiver in the draft class if it wasn't for, this unique draft class of having Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors. He'd be the number 1 in many other years. And he's also a punt returner. So maybe we can use that in some way. I don't know if you guys have listened to, I feel like after the draft, I've consumed just about every interview Rome and Caleb has been in. But when you hear Rome talk, he's seems like a very down-to-earth guy. Very professional, very kind, soft-spoken, nice guy. I don't know, he just seems like a great fit for Chicago. Favorite player was Devin Hester growing up. I think he had a Brian Urlacher jersey.
Yeah. I didn't really understand what his Bears connection is. Born in Utah, played at Bishop Gorman, but whatever, still awesome. But I agree, he's a hard hat, lunch pail type of guy. I mean, blue collar, not a guy like. When you see Neighbors at the draft talking about himself in third person, wearing sunglasses inside, that screams kind of like diva wide receiver that might, especially coming in with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, he's probably not going to be getting the lion's share of targets this year. So, I mean, to have that personality where it's like, he just seems like a team first type of guy, that's really cool on top of being an incredible player. If he stinks and he's, a great guy, who cares? He's a dog. One stat in particular, which I know we've all seen this, but like his contested catch percentage is like off the charts and way better than anyone else in the draft, where his contested catch percentage was 68%.
That's
68.2% of contested targets he caught, and that was 25 percentage points higher than Marvin Harrison and 21 percentage points higher than Malik Neighbors. So that's serious.
It's 60-40 balls.
That's a huge advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Nuts.
And I think to have a big-bodied receiver like this, I can't really remember one that we've had since Brandon Marshall or Alshon. And we've tried Claypool, Kevin White, probably a couple other no-names
Kevin White
mixed in there too. And we haven't been able to get it right. So this pick really, really excites me. He's got super strong hands. You see him make a lot of catches away from his body, which is good to see. He's like super excited for him.
Yeah, he's definitely that ingredient in the receiver gumbo that we don't have right now, right? Where DJ's sort of like the receiver who is a running back. Keenan Allen seems like maybe similar kind of guy where, Rome is going to be the big, just throw it to him, let him get that ball. And I think what's so exciting about this is not, I was texting you guys 3 years ago, Darnell Mooney was the best receiver we had in our receiver room. You know, you have Rome Odunze joining a receiver room where Mooney is the best receiver. You know, okay, fine. He'll go on to be a good receiver. Now we've got Odunze coming into a receiver room that has Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. Keenan Allen, like future Hall of Famer, DJ Moore, top 10 receiver. I mean, that's going to make his abilities even greater than they could have been. I mean, it's just like you look at what Poles has done to the team, and it seems like, wow, he's really set us up for like long-term success. You know, Keenan Allen's maybe going to be around 2
100%.
years, maybe 3 years. DJ could be around for 5 or 6 years, but now we've got Odunze who could be here for, I don't know, 10 years or something. Throwing, catching balls from Caleb. It's just amazing. Like, it's so cool.
And setting the two of them up at the same time, like pairing two
Totally.
Caleb and Rome on the same timeline, I think is so exciting.
My only concern, come 5 years from now, we're going to have to give them both
Mega
like
contracts,
super duper
yeah.
max extensions.
$1 billion contracts.
It's going to be expensive, and we're going to already have like 3 Super Bowls.
Super Bowls?
Super Bowls.
Super Brawls.
Super Brawls under our belt. But we'll worry about that later.
Mike, I feel like that's such a Bears fan thing to say. Like,
we're going to be too good. I'm scared.
We're going to be too good and have to pay them too much money.
I don't want to win the lottery because I have to pay taxes on it. Yeah.
That's like complaining about our offensive coordinator getting scooped because he was too good of an offensive coordinator. It's like, let's see.
Let's get there first.
Let's get there first. Yeah.
I was super hyped about it. I think, Pat, to what you're saying, it's like, even in free agency, like, I feel like Kevin Byard, what other defense, like, I guess the safety that we had signed as well, like Jonathan Owens, but like the whole offseason, I feel like has just been around like prepping this team to take in a quarterback like that. John, to your point, I feel like, Keenan Allen maybe wouldn't be like necessarily like the super long-term solution. So I feel like having Rome fill in that spot is super exciting. But like Rome in general, like I feel like he's such a great combination of like physical attributes of being like huge with like analytical stats that you can point to, like contested catch, but also like huge and fast. But then also just like from a production standpoint, he was like literally the most productive receiver in college. He had like 16, I'm looking at his stats right now. He had over 1,600 receiving yards, most receiving yards, like one of the most highest like receiving touchdowns. But like he was so productive in his last year. And I feel like that's always such a big thing. And he's been productive for multiple years. Having a receiver who's not just like, broken out in his last season, I feel like is super important. Mm-hmm. He's got like a good timetable of being young with having production. Like Leggett, the receiver for that the Panthers took at 32, he was like 24 right now, or like this is like his fifth or sixth season, right? And this is like literally the previous 4 seasons that he had, his max receiving yards was like 200, right? And now all of a sudden, and he's playing against like 18-year-olds as a 24-year-old. He starts like
the old Valus Jones move.
He starts doing great, right? So I feel like Rome's production, I feel like we all agree on it, but just like really excited about him, and I think it sets up. It'll be great. It'll be interesting to see in camp, kind of like where the chemistry starts going. You feel like it'd be interesting. You feel like him and Caleb would be connected the most to see how like DJ Moore and Keenan Allen, like where that goes. But just having more playmakers is great. I think it's crazy just like how this system, this like watching this Poles and Ian Cunningham show kind of like come together, where it's like you don't know what has been happening for the past 2 years. It was hard to notice that it was a tank job for 2 years until you start seeing this offseason where you're like, okay, wow, like you could actually like Poles actually this is like what trying to sign real players is like, or like acquire actually good players is like. But yeah, super exciting.
Yeah, Mully and Haw were saying the 7-on-7 drills should look quite a bit different this offseason than last year. So the ball should never touch the ground, right?
Something I think that speaks well to Rome's character is when you think about the other top two receivers in the combine or the draft, neither of them appeared in the combine. Like neither of them did anything in the combine. And then, Harrison even declined his pro day. Yeah. But Odunze made a point of, I don't know if you guys saw it, he made a point of finishing every single drill at the combine to the point of his 3-cone drill. He like was determined to get a certain time and kept doing it until he reached it. He just seems like a guy that's super determined, and I didn't know either. Yeah, he did it like 5 or 6 times.
I think they just take your best time.
It's like the SAT. You can keep taking
like I know you can run the 40 multiple times.
Yeah, I mean in high school it was like they're not going to sit out there and watch you try to break 5 seconds on the 40. But
all right, Patrick, one more time.
Pat, that was 5.5. I don't think you're going to get that 4 or 5 you're hoping for.
I was slow off the block. I can cut a second off of my next one.
I think that just speaks I think that just speaks to it. I know I'm kind of doing a lot of character analysis, but I feel like that just speaks to his character and who he is. And yeah, like you said, Mike, it's a better sign than a diva receiver. Seems that he's got a good head on his shoulders and is willing to do the dirty work and doesn't think he's better than anybody else, I think.
Yeah. I think he's a guy that Bears fans are going to fall in love with.
These are things that we would say, like, Bears take character players, and we would always feel like that was an excuse for why we took the shittier players,
Yeah, hometown
where
kid.
like, last season we passed on that edge rusher who kind of had some tricky stuff going on. Now it's like, oh, these character things are paired with a guy who's also a beast. So it's nice to see those two things
The
combining.
character thing only matters if he's any good.
Yeah, if he sucks, who gives a shit, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's like when all you're talking about is he picks up water bottles in his locker room, and you're like, is he doing anything on the field?
Or is he just picking up
water bottles?
He's yelling at guys not to sit on their helmet, right?
Did you guys also see that Caleb Williams, Mike, I think you texted that, his jersey is the #1 fanatics like of all time. It beat Kalen Clark's record. I think Chicago is ready.
Cool.
Super excited to have this guy.
Oh, man.
Such a good sign.
Yeah, this is like MJ, like when we drafted MJ, probably, right? Like
you thought there was a lot of little kids running around in field shirts, or I guess you guys don't see that as much as I do, being out in the suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's going to be so many 18 Williams around. Now, it's good to see that the Bears and Kyle Orton were willing to pull that number 18 jersey out of retirement, because I think that was a retire number for the Bears, to give that to Caleb. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's on the field, they've got like butt kiss, and they've got Orton kind of like right at the 50-yard line, right? Yeah.
They had to bring out like a 100-foot ladder to take that jersey off the rafters, to take that down and give it back to Caleb.
And give it to Caleb. It's that same jersey. Yeah.
They're going to have to trim those sleeves off of it a little bit, though, right? Like, he's going to be swimming in that.
Okay, so moving on to the next player in our draft. John brought this up. So our trade last year midseason for Montez Sweat involved a number 2 draft pick. So you'd think, okay, in round 2, would we be willing to take Montez Sweat instead of some of the other people in round 2? For me, 2 thumbs up for me. I think 100% yes.
Hands up, who doesn't make that?
I think that's 8 thumbs up. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Another amazing move from Mr. Wizard Ryan Poles.
Especially seeing now that we have Montez Sweat, seeing how important it is to get another defensive end, thinking of having no defensive end, be like, wow, it's so thankful to have someone like that on our team.
That's all. Okay, we can go back to Kieran Amagaji.
Okay, so wait. So John, wait, you say his name. So
I have heard it pronounced Kieran Amagaji.
Yeah, Amagaji. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
He was offensive tackle for Yale. If you guys listened in on our podcast with Kevin Donahue, Kevin mentioned
Swami.
He mentioned this player, and his concerns were with this player. His profile is very impressive. He's very athletic. Seems to be a very accomplished offensive tackle, but his main knock is like his level of competition in an Ivy League. In the Ivy League is like, well, whatever. Who is he actually guarding? And then you worry about that jump from Yale to NFL talent might be a hard adjustment for him. But, I think in my opinion, again, it's just nice to see Poles trying to do as much as he can to give Caleb Williams people around him. I know this guy is probably not going to be a first-year starter. It maybe is like year 2 or year 3. He starts to become more of a weapon. If you guys also saw his interview after when he talked about getting drafted, another Chicago guy that
local boy made good, Hinsdale Central.
Seems like a dream come true for him to be on the Bears. Just always exciting to see people genuinely so excited to be on the Bears and ready to play and ready to work.
Did you hear apparently he's met Eberflus. He met Eberflus at a golf event or something, and he said, "Hey, it's nice to meet you. You're gonna be drafting me next year or something."
Did he? Nice.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny now, just like the age that Pat and I are at now. We're like, I'm sure you guys experience this too, but like the age we're at now, it's like people who are our age are getting drafted, especially like from a guy from Hinsdale. Like it was funny seeing people from that I knew who like knew this guy in high school, like showing photos of him. I feel like it's so funny. But yeah, drafting Hinsdale guy, I feel like that's very cool. And it's interesting, like
that's awesome.
You check the depth chart now on ESPN, like he's already slotted in as our number 2 left tackle ahead of Borum or Pryor, just adding more depth, like actual depth at the tackle position. Like I guess, signing Matt Pryor is like technically depth, but like it would be a nightmare if he came into the game. I feel like you'd be like, oof. So I guess it's nice having like quality players that could develop into something. I think he's somebody who could compete at the starting for a starting role within a couple years, and especially could be bumped inside maybe, especially for that left guard position or that right guard position with Nate Davis. See where that goes. But yeah, I don't mind the pick, and I think it's always cool to add local talent.
Yeah, I thought it was cool to see. I think I had seen him in some mocks earlier on, or I mean in past weeks here. So cool to see the Bears, add some more line depth, like you said. I mean, similar to your conversation about the Bears secondary over the past couple weeks, it's like it's more when than if someone's going to get hurt, and then what do you know? Darth Vildor's wandered onto the field, and we're relying on him again. It's like
who let him out?
Someone's going to get hurt. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we didn't even know he's on the team still.
He snuck a jersey.
But someone's going to get hurt on the line, and it's good to like have quality backups who can step in, play meaningful minutes or meaningful snaps, and you're not super worried about them. Now, obviously, he's rookie from Ivy League, so we still have to see. But I think this is. I at least like the pick. Super. Obviously, Connor, you showed that picture of him. Enormous man, like 6'5",
super athletic,
326 or something like that. He has little analytics here. 36.5-inch arms, which are in the 92nd percentile.
That's a good
size.
I went ahead
of arms, and measured my own arms today. I've got 30-inch arms. So his arms are 6.5 inch longer than mine, which really just seemed crazy when I held out the measuring tape. That includes the hand,
right? It's not just to the wrist.
I'm assuming so.
He's got long wrists.
Maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, no, it's exciting. I'm happy for the guy, local kid. Let's go.
I mean, offensive line, I feel like is always, like y'all are saying, the position where we just get depleted so quickly, and then all of a sudden Dan Feeney is snapping the ball over Justin's head, or you've got just anybody. So having depth there is crucial. I mean, he's going to play, right? Even if he's our swing tackle, he's going to get a lot of play.
I mean, Jenkins and Davis are walking injuries, so it's probably week 1 he's going to be in.
You think so?
Literally, like Braxton Jones, like you take him 5th round and you're like, oh, here's a high upside lineman that you have. And then like camp comes around and you're like, oh, Braxton Jones is getting starting reps. Then they just become the starter. You can't be upset about that.
The fact that his NFL comp, Pat, like you mentioned, is Braxton Jones is pretty funny.
It's so ironic.
But there's worse things. His NFL comp could be Larry Borum. So I'd rather have the Braxton Jones or Dan Feeney.
Very Dan Feeney style play.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I did see over the last 2 seasons, he hadn't given up a sack in 411 snaps, which...
I thought he only gave up 1 sack his whole college career.
Oh,
Am
maybe?
I thinking of somebody else? I thought that was his stat, which is pretty good, even if he's playing with those Ivy Leaguers.
I mean, you'd rather have him dominate the Ivy Leaguers than to be like not play very well against the competition, right? You'd want him to
probably
dominate.
Wouldn't have been drafted in the 3rd round if he sucked, right?
So moving on to the next player we have. Now this is where I feel like up until then, draft was going pretty like, okay, this is pretty normal. This is good. Everything's going according to plan.
Books.
And then screeching halt, record scratch, like, whoa, okay. Here we go. We drafted Iowa punter Tory Taylor with the 122nd pick. Connor, you said this is the highest punter taken since
Brian Anger.
When did you say 2019?
2012.
Or when was that?
Brian Anger,
2012. Yeah. Just a couple quick things about this guy. You guys can highlight his stats. He seems like a monster. I just wanted to highlight, so Iowa punter, similar to Illinois punting, we a couple years ago, my freshman year, we had this really good punter that people thought was going to be a draft prospect. But it's because Illinois and Iowa, our offenses stink, so they have the chance to punt all the time. I don't know if you saw, but this guy had 93 punts in a 13-game season, so he was punting on average 7 times in a game, which is insane. But he's from Australia, which is the same Illinois punter. I thought that was funny. I mean, seems like far and away the best punter in the draft. I don't know what that means for you, but if Poles is confident in the roster that he's created and is confident that he's filled enough holes, if you're not able to draft an upgrade at a starting position that's going to be on the team for, hopefully 10 years and then is going to be a difference maker in the position, then, why not? In a couple of years, you probably won't think about the draft you invested in him if he's a difference maker, which, in college, he was a super valuable asset to Iowa.
I was just going to say, this is a position that kind of flies under the radar unless your punter is glaringly bad, and Trenton Gill is glaringly bad. I think he's a terrible punter. He put our defense in bad positions game after game. I think punter is one of the most important positions you can have on a team to set up your defense to be good. I was bitching about this the entire season. It's really nice to see them make it a priority, because you turn the field over with a good punter, and if he can be around for 10 seasons, like a Brad Maynard or something, like that's awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's, John, I don't know if you had more of a dissertation about that.
Oh, no, one other thing. So apparently Caleb texted him. Caleb's already a little trickster, little jokester. He texted him and said, "Hey, you're not going to punt too much here," which is a funny thing to say. So that's it. That's all I want to say.
That's good. But I mean, honestly, it's like the punter, like you said, this is such a weapon, helps the offense, helps the defense out a lot. I mean, it just helps flip the field. It's a huge, like you said, it's a weapon. And I was listening to Bears writer Adam Hogue. He's got a podcast too. I was listening to that. And he had a good point where it's like, would you rather, with the 122nd pick, take a project defensive end who knows, hopefully Austin Booker turns out to be awesome, but like take a project defensive end that probably never going to see the field eventually, or do you want to use that pick on a surefire, just immediate difference maker who's going to really help your team out for like the next 10 years? Yeah, it's a punter. You don't see that often, but when you have a guy at his level, I think it's a smart pick. And I was looking through just some of his measurables. He is 6'4", 232.
Huge.
As a punter, he's like a tight end or a skinny defensive end.
Aussie rules football in Australia or something.
He did.
That's probably his breeding, right?
That's what it said. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Okay, that makes sense then. But
so he's like a power forward.
Yeah, pretty much. But so his average of 48.2 yards per punt last season would have put him tied for 13th in the NFL last year. So right away, like before the guys even come into the league, gone through the NFL training regiment, he's already better than middle of the pack, which is awesome to see. My only knock against him, I don't know if you guys seen him, he's got real like TikTok influencer hair going, kind of with like the short on the sides, curly up front.
It was written on his draft profile. Yeah,
we'll have to do something about that.
Flus has to give him his barber so he can get nice and cleaned up, lined up. But we'll get that worked out. But yeah, I think great pick.
He is Australian. We'll let that go.
I think overall, like you said, John, I think punter is always something that like when it can become a weapon, it can be super valuable. Being able to actually put somebody within the 5 instead of just giving them the ball at the 25, I feel like is invaluable. I will say that like I think it's great to have somebody who projects to be this successful, like to acquire that guy. I think like I do always get kind of freaked out when people like draft special teamers this high. Like I remember, I think of like the Bucs drafting Roberto Aguayo, who was like, I think like a second or third round pick as a kicker. And like, sometimes these things just like don't work out, right? And even if they project to be great, sometimes it doesn't work out. And especially because we hadn't addressed the edge position yet, taking this guy before that, it kind of felt like filling in the bubbles on your test before you would like go over them, making sure like the bubbles look nice or something. But I think overall, if you can turn it into something great, I would be super excited about that. I was looking at like past drafts about like high drafted punters, and I think it was funny in like 1973 Ray Guy was the 23rd overall pick, or Russell Ergelbin was the 11th pick in the draft.
How about Sebastian Janikowski? In 2000, Seabass was the 17th pick.
I mean, That dude's got a thunder leg.
I mean, that guy had a missile leg. And I will say, Ray Guy is the only punter in the Hall of Fame, so I guess that worked out. But that other guy, never heard of him. And the fact to use the 11th overall pick on a punter is insane.
Torrey Taylor won the Ray Guy award for best punter, so like, yeah, Ray Guy, hell of a punter. But yeah, I don't know. It's also interesting. He's Aussie guy. I think the Aussie style punt is getting more popular, like in the NFL. So him being, that being his kind of style, I think is cool. But yeah, I think like that stat that I threw out in our chat, I think that was actually true, that he had more punting yards than the Iowa offense, especially if he was punting 7 times a game. That like seems like that is very reasonable, but his stats are crazy. And I think, turns into a weapon. Be all for it.
Now so you said he punted what, 90 93 times last
times.
year in 13 games.
Mhm.
So Trenton Gill, I looked up, he punted 67 times in 18 games. So it just shows you like the difference there. And like the Bears had a terrible offense
Yeah,
last
I felt
year.
like he was punting 10 times a game.
Yeah,
Holy
right.
cow. I mean, those Iowa games are brutal. I remember when Iowa played Illinois, and it was like,
defense.
Yeah, that was snooze fest. I looking at this guy's highlight tape, which was short, but
exciting.
he was most of the highlights were him pinning them. So that could be, you know, obviously you're not going to use the Aussie style like.
Is that where you
roll.
kind of come at it sideways and you're kind of
like, I feel like it's more of like you're grabbing the ball and you're looking up more when you're punting, like you're kind of like waiting to hold it. I think it's always like you can take the option to run sometimes, but like
I think I saw that one time. And that was because I think everyone on defense fell down.
he should not take the run
I'm
option.
taking
He should
the
just
run
go ahead and kick
option.
that thing.
Fourth and 20. It's like, oh, I see it. It's
Do you
open.
think he'll signal to Flus like run? You know, couple fingers on the helmet. Oh,
I got
coach, just
this,
hold
mate.
the option to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, they're leaving me open. Hey, I check those Aussie those accents there. Wow.
oh wow, Tori, I think Tori just joined the podcast. Well,
Oh yeah.
Oh, all right. See you later, guys.
Oh, so now I'm just remembering the Sox don't have that Australian closer anymore.
Hendricks?
Who I can't
Liam
remember
Hendricks?
his name now. Who was awesome, but
The
Hendricks,
cancer
yeah,
survivor. That
Hendricks.
guy's a
Yeah.
badass.
he is. That'd have been cool to
boss.
have two Aussies in the city.
I don't know why he wouldn't want to be on the 5-23 Chicago White Sox.
6-23. We won again today. That's 2 in a row.
I had a dream last night where the White Sox were 500, and I was like, how did this happen? How are we 500 now? I thought we were so bad. And then I woke up. Did everyone other team die?
That's really something that you're dreaming about the White Sox.
And even
Yeah,
your wildest
with
dreams were at
You're
500.
in Paris dreaming
All of your
about
European travels over the past several months, that's still what you're dreaming about.
It's like Dwight dreaming about being a manager of a hotel in hell.
So then, other acquisition we made this free agency was drafting Keenan Allen was acquiring Keenan Allen for a 4th round draft pick, which I don't have the details on where other wide receivers went. I know like Leggett went at the end of the first, but then I remember the other Texas receiver hadn't gone yet. Yeah, Donnie Mitchell hadn't gone yet. And then Connor, you said the Oregon receiver hadn't gone yet, it seemed like. So I don't know what the 4th round value for receivers was. I had imagined Keenan Allen is still much better than the 4th round talents we could have gotten. And especially when you consider what he brings as a veteran receiver that has 12 or over 10 years of experience, and what he can do for Rome and for Caleb, just the impact that he can have for Caleb. I think it's worth the 4th round pick.
Yeah, I saw some videos. I think this was actually, or maybe right when the Bears picked him up, but him in training camp last year with Quentin Johnson in LA, kind of like running through routes with him and like technique and stuff like that. Like, it was just really cool to see him embracing like the younger guys, not being like, the Brett Favre of why do I have to mentor this younger player coming in to take my job, but also being like a legit pseudo like coach on the field for the young receivers. That's just going to be really cool to see, and a huge value for Rome.
It's always cool to see like insights into training camp and just seeing what the best of the best, how they actually think, like their thought process when running routes and doing drills, and just seeing how they do it, how different it is.
Yeah, they said when DJ Moore came in last year, it was like the first day of training camp, and I don't know, some Bears beat reporter, can't remember who it was, but they're like, you could see a difference like immediately from the bums that we had out on the field, and then you're like, oh, this is a real professional receiver who actually like takes this seriously, goes about his business, knows what the
There was
hell
that
he's
video
doing.
last year of this is not Bears related, but it was Jaguars camp when Calvin Ridley started coming back, with like Zay Jones running, running a 5-yard in. They're doing in practice, and Zay Jones running it, and you're like, oh, it looks pretty good. And then you see Calvin Ridley run it, and you're like, oof, that's wow, yeah.
Yeah, so fast, yeah.
So then moving on to our last draft pick, which, as a reminder, we came into the draft with 4 draft picks, and then we traded back after drafting Torrey Taylor. We traded back to draft Austin Booker, who is a defensive end from Kansas, and he is another big dude. He is 6'5", 240, so he's tall, but needs to add a little bit more beef on that frame. He's got an 81-inch wingspan, and he's certainly, like Mike, you hinted at, a project defensive end. He is a transfer from Minnesota and really only had 1 year of actually playing. And that was this year, where he had played in 12 games. He had 8 sacks, 56 tackles, and has in total 505 snaps. So he's very inexperienced, which I think can be seen as a positive and a negative. I think a lot of scouts would say his production that he's already produced, as someone with not a lot of experience, he still showed diversity in his pass rush with different techniques, and he's shown the capabilities of excelling as a high defensive end with little experience. It'd be interesting to see what NFL coaches can do to him, and once he puts on some more muscle, I think it's exciting. I don't know if he's going to be the first year instant starter to complement Montez Sweat, but I think it'll be interesting to see where he goes, how he develops in training camp.
I did hear that he only played something like 26% of defensive snaps last year for Kansas. So he was a real, indicates to me that he's probably a third down guy that comes in passing situations. But with that, was highly successful to still have 8 sacks with that limited number of snaps. Now, obviously, the rationale is if he plays 75% of the snaps, he's going to have 15 sacks. Yeah, that's DeMarcus Walker, and that obviously didn't play out this past year, but hopefully, seems like really raw, but with a lot of potential. So hoping for the best, and seems like he was a guy that people projected could have gone higher. So
people were saying steal of the draft, but I don't know.
Yeah, Bears able to just sneak back into the draft to scoop him up.
Now, this is just semantics, but I heard that Kansas plays a 3-4, so isn't he technically an edge or an outside linebacker, not an end? The Bears play a 4-3, so they have ends, and Kansas is a 3-4.
So I think Minnesota plays a 4-3, and then you're right, Kansas plays that 3-4. So he said in an interview, he's excited to get his hand back in the dirt.
I was going to say, all the highlights I saw of him was standing. I'm worried he's going to be like a Leonard Floyd, too skinny.
Floyd is a productive player in the NFL, yeah.
Nah, he wasn't with the Bears.
He was not with the Bears. Chargers
he's
or
turned
whoever.
It around.
He went with the Rams. Would he go to the Rams?
Yeah, Rams.
Very good with them, but not with the Bears. He was too skinny.
I think he holds the Bears franchise record for safeties, I think, with 2. So,
really?
But, if you want to spit on history,
don't discount that, John.
But
that was my only thought when I saw him. He needs to eat some cheeseburgers.
Yeah, he needs to hit Giordano's, get some Italian beefs, some Portillo's.
He had 505 snaps, I think, in his career, maybe? So he didn't play a lot, and I know he was projected as a situational pass rusher, like what you were saying, Mike, with third down. Definitely a project, which is fine. I think it is interesting to, be having, and I think this kind of goes back to the point of, I feel like our edge isn't totally solidified, so, getting somebody who's still, a project guy there is, don't know how he's going to, fit in throughout the season. But I think his profile is not somebody who's coming in to be the starter day one or not expected to be. And I think it's tough sometimes with draft Twitter and stuff like that, where you see guys who are oh, he's, third round grade on him. And you think that you just need to draft all of these players. And, because we drafted this guy, that he's going to work out well. But I think I do think it was good value on him, trading back in. It seemed like he was a guy who was falling down boards, and he did destroy U of I that last year. He had 2 sacks, I believe. He was all over the place, but I think his profile is somebody who could be a plus edge rusher for the Bears, whether it's situationally or not. So I think it's fine taking a guy like this, especially with a good veteran presence with Sweat there to help him develop and make up some of the flaws that caused him to be a 5th round pick and not a day 1 pick. But I do think, again, it's great we addressed the edge position. Still, a little hesitant about not having an actual quality starter on the other side of Sweat to see there, but
yeah, we definitely still need to pick up another veteran.
Problem not solved. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's still a few guys out there, obviously Ngakoue is still out there, barf, but I mean, at least he's a body we can put out there. But I think there's a couple veterans who could still plug in, but yeah, job is not done there.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. It's like literally the same thing last year where it's like didn't address it in the draft, and then you're like, okay, now we need to sign a veteran, and then we signed like Yannick Ngakoue, and he was like trolled us the whole season where it's like,
yeah, you're like, wow, this guy had 8 sacks last year. He's going to be awesome for us now.
We have to be like, who's still available? Okay, he had 6 sacks 3 years ago. Okay, yeah, let's go see you put him in.
yeah, right.
But in high school, he had 100. Maybe he can tap back into that.
Yeah.
Is Ngakoue not even on the Bears anymore? He's not on our depth chart.
No.
Oh, brother.
Shockingly, no one has scooped him up. I mean, my friend Alex Brown's still available.
I'm sure there's somebody available. Wow, did you guys know we now have 3 punters on our team? Trenton Gill, Torrey Taylor, and a guy named Corliss Waitman. A lot of depth at that position.
Actually, I remember he actually did have a couple punts last year. I remember him.
Do you guys remember when after the Cody Parkey thing where like Nagy brought in like 8 kickers to compete for the starting spot? I feel like
yeah, that was the last time we've gotten this much media coverage, was the circus around our kicker, where they literally had news helicopters flying over Soldier Field filming this kicker tryout, and everyone just beefing it up.
Didn't Cody Parkey go on Good Morning America and recreate his missed punt? So, you know.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. So it was not without reason that there was a little circus around it. Yeah, that's how you lose yourself a job in the NFL.
How do we feel after the draft? Our standing within the NFC North. We don't have to talk about like we're going to win the Super Bowl, but how do we feel within the division? Like you said, Vikings had a good draft. I feel like Packers had a good draft. They've had some good signings.
The problem is within the last 2 years, like the NFC North has transformed from what was a wasteland of garbage with just the Packers to now every team. I guess the Vikings kind of, we'll see how they do, but every team, and I guess the Bears obviously, but like most teams seem pretty competitive, especially the Lions and especially the Packers. So I feel like we're one of the best divisions, or we are one of the best divisions, I think, in the NFL. I would say I would put us above the Vikings. I would not put us up above the Lions. And I think the Packers are probably better than I give them credit for. So I'd say still above Vikings, but I think third in the NFC. But to be determined, that first game, though, I mean, if Caleb throws for like 400.
If he throws for more than 250, I'll be extremely happy.
I mean, Jared Goff had 2 crappy games against us last year. I know he's good and all, but I don't know. He never looked good against us. I mean, Jordan Love looked great. I know Jared Goff is good. I feel like maybe we have the second best quarterback in the North right now. That's my hot take. Come at me. Let's do it.
That's
and who
spicy.
Jordan Love
That's
has 1 year on his resume. I mean, he shredded us, totally shredded us in week 18. But we'll see. Bring it. Come at me.
My hope is that now that Amon-Ra St. Brown's gotten paid, he's going to really like stop working out,
focus on his podcast.
He's like going to focus on buying more Lamborghinis or something and not torching us. So we'll see. Hopefully that works out.
The thing that I did think of when I was watching this draft was, man, there are a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. And it's kind of surprising, like nobody wanted Justin Fields. Who's the Saints quarterback? You know, it's like nobody wanted this guy. There were tons of teams who don't have good quarterbacking on there, and they still would rather go with Bo Nix. You know, like, I don't know. This is the most excited I've been for a season in April ever.
Yes.
So that'll do it for another episode of Chicagolandians. Thank you again for all of you that have stayed to the end to listen to our breakdown of the NFL draft. I want to give a special thanks to Mike and John Cunningham for making time to record this podcast with their 2 younger brothers. We really appreciate you guys' time, and especially with our scheduling difficulties. But that'll do it for another episode. As always, guys,
bear down, baby.
Bear down.
Bear down, baby.